It was a net DPS loss. It increased the insanity cost by 10 and only gave it an 8% increase. That's so bad. Why is that even a thing? All right, so first thing we were going to look at is the affixes. So here are this week's updates to Mercenary Eltharion PTR. Dragonflight Season 2, Mythic Plus. Okay, so we looked at all of these affixes last weekend. I will give you my quick thoughts on all of them. I thought Incorporeal had a ton of issues. Mainly when you CC'd them, they like could take damage and immune to damage. So it looks like they solved that. Also, I just feel like my main takeaway from last week on seeing Explosive, Afflicted, and Incorporeal made me have an overall revelation that basically this is the goal. If you're I don't like affixes in this game. I actually think there's a world where you do positive affixes or you massively nerf the amount of things that affixes are doing and just make them insanely less impactful. And I think seasonals are good. But forgetting my opinions, they're going with like the current ideas, affixes. So let's just talk about that. I think that an affix should never be the thing you are focusing more on than the pack or boss you are pulling. Literally ever. Ever. And when you think about the times in this game when you are thinking about the affix more than the pack you are doing, it's actually just because they scale too much with the amount you are pulling. Storming, bursting, explosive, incorporeal, afflicted, bolstering in a way. Like basically the more mobs you're pulling, the more annoying the affixes are. And I just don't think it should linearly scale like that. If an affix is not annoying at 3 mobs, it should not be annoying at 10 mobs. It should never cross the threshold of being the thing you are solely focusing on instead of the pack, like a lot of these things have in the past. Especially because it always gets thrown to healers to do. I think Incorporeal existed like that. You should never have 5 of these mobs out. Afflicted if it happened like that. You should never have 5 of these mobs out. Explosive was happening like that. Entangling kind of owns, but we'll get to that. Okay, so Incorporeal. The Incorporeal affix has a similar role than to Afflicted, but with the emphasis on crowd control utility. A few things we were hoping to smooth out include both the rate at which these spawn, sometimes too many at once, and ease with which crowd control can be accidentally broken once applied. Correct. We are discussing a change to incorporeal beings that would cause them to fade away when combat and non-incorporeal beings has ended. Oh, so that's awesome. So one other issue with this affix was, let's say you got one to spawn at the end of the pack and you paralyzed it, your entire group would still be in combat with it for 20 seconds after the pack is over and you can't mount up and go away. So also what it does is if they're ever spawning late into a pack, you don't really have to worry about them because they'll actually just despawn before their cast goes off. So that's actually an awesome change, and making them immune to damage is an awesome change. I still think that them being alive for 20 seconds is just weak, but I actually don't really hate the idea of this affix because you don't really utilize your like super long CCs super often. Like you're going to be, with this affix, you're going to be paralyzing and blinding like on cooldown without really much of an effect on your damage, and I don't really feel that bad about that. That being said, I just think this affix and every affix should just be as little impactful as possible, up to the point where maybe like only 1 or 2 of these ever spawn at once, which is kind of maybe what they're referring to here, so hopefully they do that. And then Afflicted is the other one. This is the one that spawns, you can either heal it up or dispel it, with any dispel except for magic. Afflicted's affix is meant to incentivize a greater focus on dispel utility. This is mostly working out, but their health at higher key levels is a bit too high for healing. Okay, so nerfing their health a little bit. Dude, I really like these. I actually didn't mind Afflicted at all. I felt cool in a dungeon on a Windwalker. You know, basically every single time one came out, I just slammed my disease, whatever dispel Monks has. I think it's disease. The disease dispel, just like mouse overing one of the Afflicted ads, and then you just keep going with your pack. That felt good. That was that didn't feel bad as a DPS player. Like I didn't mind doing that at all. It actually felt kind of engaging because you don't usually press that. I think like as opposed to explosive, I think like people will be like, oh no, you're just gonna have healers do it because just like explosive damage, never want to press it. Dude, wasting a DPS ability and a DPS resource on an explosive is totally different than like just a random ass GCD you use on a purge or a dispel. So I don't mind Afflicted, although like I said, just with all affixes, be less ass. New affix Entangling. While in combat, Entangling vines snare players. I love this affix as a DPS player. I think it's super fucking easy. Almost every class in the game has one GCD they can use to deal with it. It is very, very non-impactful. That being said, I think it's a little bit ass for tanks. So we're keeping an eye on the potency and also making to improve visual clarity and audio cues. That's great, because that's definitely an issue with it. I think they should consider not putting it on tanks. I know that's probably goes against their like philosophy on this, but I think the tank role with grouping and positioning is so important, and it's just insanely annoying to deal with this affix specifically as tanks. But that's just like a minor thing. Like, it could definitely go live the way it is, and it would be fine. Explosive was dog shit last weekend. Let's get an idea here. So we've heard the feedback that both the explosives in their new form have too much health, and then in general it makes sense to try and ignore them, thus making them a healer problem in a different way than before. Correct. The new version of explosive they showed not only was really bad and totally went against their entire philosophy of what they were changing with these, and just in general, I think did not help the trust that the Mythic Plus had for the developers doing this. And I think honestly that's fair criticism. If you say, hey, we're getting rid of seasonals, which a lot of people actually like seasonals when they're good. In fact, they make the game way fucking better when they exist and they're good, like the last two before Thundering. They're like, okay, you know what? We're going to redo the 7 affixes, and we want to make affixes in general less impactful. That was their vision for these affixes. And then they give you 3 of the 4 that people generally hated, and explosive was worse than any iteration that they've ever shown before. So when you make statements like that, which people like, but then the execution of it is that far off, you're just going to lose trust. I don't think that's the community being super dobby. I actually feel like it's totally warranted for them to have really disliked their first iteration of these affixes. That being said, we're at this point now. They're not live yet. Let's see what they end up to be at the end of the patch. So let's see what they ended up doing here. We are discussing a redesign for the explosive affix to shift responsibility away from healers. The proposed change would cause explosives to instead shield creatures for a percentage of the explosive's remaining health when the cast completes. Wait, so the proposed change would cause explosives... Oh, so when explosives go off, they no longer do raid damage. They just shield every mob. But they still have the same amount of health and they still spawn as much as they do? Okay, I'm about to get very dobby. I am going to stop being dummy. Wait, no, dude, they have less health. The note says they has less health. Oh, fuck. Oh, explosive affix now has less health and a more consistent spawn behavior. Okay, so explosives will spawn with less health. Even with this, though, let's wait until the testing. It should be on Thursday, right? And let's see. But I don't actually like the idea of this redesign. I obviously love the fact that they have less health and they spawn more consistently. I still really, really dislike this. But I'll go into it with a clear head on Thursday, not looking to hate it, but give it an objective, like, non-biased opinion then, hopefully. But I don't like this. I mean, it's objectively better than it doing damage. I guess it depends on how much it increases, right? How much health absorb it gives them. Oh, but it's a percentage of the explosive's remaining health. Okay. So it's not like it just gives them a flat number. It's like literally however much health is left on it, that absorb goes on them. So okay, so you're still intended to like single target these down in a pack. Okay, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. Because if you ignore, it's going to be bad to ignore it. Because if it goes on every mob, imagine you're fighting 6 mobs and then a 600k explosive spawns. That's how much health it has. And you hit that thing for 600k. Let's say you ignore it. You're going to now give 600k health to 6 other targets. So you're never going to ignore it. You're going to... But does it split? It would shield creatures for a percentage. I really hope that the shield that goes out on all the mobs is split evenly from that number. If it gives the full number to every mob, which it looks like it is actually, if I'm reading this right, that is very doggy, very doggy. All I'm saying is, if the correct way to deal with explosive when it comes out is everyone stops AoEing and single targets this explosive, which, by the way, I really want to point out, you're not going to be able to AoE off the explosive. The way explosives work right now is like totems. If you press an AoE ability, if you press Fist of Fury, Blade of Justice, Crusader Strike, Judgment, you know, an AoE ability on the explosive, it will not take damage from it. So you're going to have to literally press only single target abilities on this explosives, and that is the correct way to play this. I think that is the opposite of an impactful, of like the correct level of impact that an affix should have on your group. You know what I mean? Like I'm just thinking about the gameplay of it. If you're pulling a pack and you're like, oh, an explosive spawns, I need to now fully single target this, and I can't use half of the spells on my toolkit because they randomly don't hit explosives, that is going to feel horrible. But that being said, because it seems like they're trying to make you ignore them and make them a healer problem. It seems like they don't want you to ignore them. And the way they do that is by making it so if you leave them alive, all the mobs are going to get a shield for this. But you're right. If it does split, you will ignore them. But it sounds like they don't want you to ignore them, so I doubt it'll split. Let's wait till Thursday. but I actually really think that this is still just bad. I will wipe all of that from my head on Thursday and try it out and try to like it, I guess, but it just sounds really bad. In addition to above, we're also discussing a change to the progression of affixes on keystones. With an item rewards now increasing up to level 20, we're evaluating at which levels affixes are added to keystones. Our proposed change would delay when affixes are added to keystones. This is to give players more time to acclimate to baseline dungeons before additional mechanics come online, and to better match the complexity of a Mythic Plus dungeon that rewards it offers. So if you're someone who does 15 and up keys, this is literally irrelevant to you. There's no reason to read this, but for anyone who at any point in the expansion does level 13 or below keys, at level, you will not have any affixes on your key besides Fortified or Tyrannical until level 7, in which you'll have 1, and then at 14 you'll have 2. I would also say that in general, I think this is just great for the game. It's never really made a ton of sense to me why on the road up to 10, that is when all the affixes get applied, because like 10 is just such an unbelievably like low number. Not even as like an out of touch thing. Like my girlfriend just started playing WoW this patch. She's still like, she's learning, right? She does 10s and 11s and 12s with her friends that are of a similar skill level, and they fucking crush that shit. Like a 10 is beyond low for like a new season, especially later in the season. So this I think just makes more sense. I mean, it makes sense with their new loot system. It makes sense for people actually wanting to progress keys. Their entire developer's note is completely logical, like very rational thinking. All of this makes sense. This probably should have happened a long time ago. So this is just a good change, I think, just for the game. You're exactly right, Basic. I think the reason it was the way it was for a while, it was like 4, 7, 10, and then 10 was the cap on gear you could get. But ever since they raised the cap to 15, they probably should have just made these changes a while ago just to make up for that. But this makes sense, and it will not affect most of you, but I think it does make sense. So overall feelings, Incorporeal will be less ass for sure. Afflicted looks like it'll be less ass for sure. Actually, wait, it looks like they're not really changing Afflicted, right? Except for nerfing their health a little bit and more consistent spawn behavior. It seems like more consistent spawn behavior is something they added to everything. Dude, by the way, I hope Blizzard, if you're listening to this, add this more consistent spawn behavior, because I think what this means is it just doesn't ramp as much. It like has consistent spawns regardless of the group size. I'm praying that that's what this means, because that was the biggest form of feedback last week, I think, from the community. Apply this to storming. Apply this to just other affixes that become infinitely more dog shit when you pull a lot more ads. It will make those affixes better for the same reason. I actually like Afflicted with this new change. I loved Entangling last week. Could be a little bit better for tanks. I will say I will probably like this version of Explosives if it splits the shield amongst the mobs, and I will very, very much dislike this explosive if that full value from the explosive gets sent to every mob as an absorb. And the main reason I dislike that actually is just because of fundamentally how explosives work. And if you're a melee, you know this. Hitting explosives as a DPS sucks for many reasons, but one of the main ones is half of your abilities just don't work on it. And it's super unintuitive for new players too, because they don't even know that. Do you know how many like new rep paladins doing a level fucking 14 key next season are going to try to be killing an explosive and not even realize that half of their fucking buttons don't work on it? That is like the opposite of what you're trying to do to help new players get into the game. So it's bad for new players. It's bad for players who are experienced with the game because they have to like fucking micromanage what buttons they're pressing, and some classes are infinitely worse for explosives because of that weird requirement. Here's a way to fix this, man. Even if it means they have more health, make them be able to take damage from AoE abilities. Make them be able to be cleaved so you don't have to do it. Because anytime the affix says this, when it spawns, you change your target and you DPS this thing, that affix is going to be bad. But if it can be cleaved and it gets hit by AoE abilities, you know, it'll go below the line of I don't have to think about this affix more than the actual pack I'm doing. Explosive becomes the most important thing in the pack, even with this change. That is the exact line that should never be crossed when you are making an affix in this game right now. So yeah, that's yeah. I talked about explosives for like fucking 10 minutes, but I think it's a big problem. Okay, let's see. Characters. Added 4 new skin tones and 4 new hair colors for Dark Iron Dwarves. Pog. Blind eye options has been moved from eye color. Oh my god, let's fucking go, dude. Alright, class changes now. DK, Frost. Vault of the Incarnates 2 set has been adjusted. Obliterate and Frost Scythe critical strike damage is increased by 10%, was 15. I'll wait to hear from DK people, but I think this is fine. I think that tier set was fucking giga insane. Although, this is interesting, though, because I think most of their power came from the 4-piece. Right? Wasn't their 4-piece what was, like, just fucking blasting? And, like, the 2-piece seemed like it was pretty average, so... Oh, wait, this is an old set. Oh! Are they nerfing old 2s? Sorry, I need to pull up the new set so I don't get confused. Okay, so they're nerfing the Frost Decay bonus from Vault. And they're nerfing the Havoc 4-piece for... Wait. There's probably not a ton to read into this. I imagine what they're trying to do is to make it very... If you have an old, very good 2-piece, they want to nerf the old 2-piece. What they really don't want is it ever to be best in slot for any single class to keep their old 2-piece from a previous patch. There's actually going to be more coming in this area too. Not only in tier 2-piece and 4-piece reductions from previous tier, but also in trinkets. So this hasn't happened yet, but I got some bad news if you guys are planning on using Puzzy B or any of the trinkets that drop specifically in Mythic Plus from last patch. Blizzard in Season 4, when the other side was going away and all those other trinkets were going away, they nerfed the fuck out of IQD and a few other trinkets. And the only reason for that is if you started playing in Season 4, you would not have been able to get the same IQD that everyone else had because it was no longer in the dungeon pool, and you could only get a Mythic 0 version of it, which would not have equaled that power. So they nerfed the shit out of them so that would not be something in the new season. They have not done that yet for this season, but every bit of inclination shows that they are going to do that. So that also applies to tier bonuses. I think it's totally fine that 2 pieces are not completely obliterated, because what a lot of people will do is when you get new tier, and it's actually going to low-key feel a bit better, I think, getting tier in this patch than it has been in the previous patch. Not because it's just massively easier to get it in general with Omni tokens and the new system where you just get a free piece of heroic tier, you know, pretty much instantly of whatever slot you want. But going forward, when you get a new piece of tier, when you get a new 2-piece, it's not like you're losing your old 4-piece and your old 2-piece. You keep your old 2-piece. So people will be 2-piece natty for a while, not even because it's like the best in slot thing. It's just going to bridge you over until you get all 4 pieces of your new tier. Max, do you think Diurnia Ring can still be best for Abras? I think it depends on your stats, but I don't think they're going to nerf any of the raid items. And it's for one reason. Because next patch, if you want to go back and do a much easier version of the Mythic raid, you can actually still get those pieces. If you want a Primal Council trinket in Season 2, you can go back into Mythic Vault. It'll be much easier with eye level, like massively easier, and you can easily still farm those items. The difference is with Mythic Plus is it is impossible to get a 421 puzzle box next patch. It is impossible to get a 415 puzzle box next patch. So that is why they're nerfing one and not the other. Okay, so Vault here, Obliterate and Frost Scythe, crit damage increased by 10, was 15, so nerf the Frost 2-piece current. Havoc, nerf the current 2-piece. Yo, Havoc's new tier needs to be better, by the way. Druid Guardian. New crazy Guardian changes, actually. Several new combat animations added to the Might/Blight of the Grizzlemawd Druid Bear form customizations. So, massive ups there. Resto. Fixed an issue that caused Wild Growth's healing to fall off incorrectly and heal for less than intended, and because of this fix, they're just nerfing Wild Growth in general by 4%. Alright, Devastation changes. Thanks to the invaluable feedback from all of you, if you guys, Devastation Evokers have been reeing for like a month and a half from these changes, and they've been right. We've made further changes to Devastation's talents. The bottom section of the tree has been significantly rearranged and has fewer 2-point nodes. Causality has been iterated on, maintaining the goal of fully rewarding channeling disintegrates, but addressing the concerns with how the new design has been interact with haste. Finally, some underused talents have gotten partial or full reworks to introduce a new build and playstyle options. So, if you guys were unaware, basically Blizzard was really ragey that you were not full channeling disintegrate in your cooldowns, so you could actually like... Because, like, properly, to get the highest Dragon Rage uptime, you would cut your Disintegrate, which admittedly is super unintuitive for new players. So they gave you a bunch of benefits to doing that, but it was still worth clipping your Disintegrate. So it made the class feel bad, and they got massively nerfed because of it. 10.0.5 Devastation Evoker absolutely dunks on the current version of it before these changes. So let's see. So Causality has been redesigned. Let's open up a Devastation Evoker talent tree here. On live would be the way. Essence abilities reduce the cooldown on Eternity Surge by 1 second. So just in general, and now it's been redesigned entirely. Disintegrate reduces the remaining cooldown of your Empower spells by 0.5 seconds each time it deals damage. And Pyre reduces their cooldown by 0.4 seconds per enemy struck up to 2 seconds. Causality is no longer a choice talent. Okay, so they increased the power level of causality by a fucking shitload. I imagine they're also going to move it in the tree. Let's see, let's open up the 10.1 tree. Oh, massively different bottom of the tree. Okay, so causality is literally a fucking capstone now. But that makes sense because it's like turbo strong in its new version. So, okay, this is major, major changes. That also makes sense because I just think the bottom of Evoker's talent tree and a criticism you could make of it before is that the stuff down here actually wasn't that powerful. A lot of the stuff that made the spec tick was up here. So in general, that philosophy just doesn't make sense. Like, you should feel like you're investing to get something super powerful at the bottom and not have it like middle to bottom middle. So looks good for that so far. Which also means that you are even further with, if you ever pick causality, which looks like it's going to be a massive buff to your Dragon Rage uptime, which I imagine you're just always going to play this actually just from looking at it. You are definitely going to full channel Disintegrate, right? From just that alone. But either way, Font of Magic, which is right here. Your Empower spells increase the maximum level by 1, and also they reach their power level faster. Font of Magic now also causes your Empower spells to reach a maximum level in 20% less time. Oh, that's on the new thing. So that's just added from the old one. Old Font of Power did not give you a faster channel of your Empower thing, so that's good. Everburning Flame is no longer a choice node with Feed the Flames. Okay, so Feed the Flames and Everburning Flame used to only ever be one or both, and now they are swapped. It also looks like one of them was remade. Feed the yep, right here. Feed the Flame's been redesigned. After casting 12 pyres, your next pyre will explode into a firestorm. Does not trigger from volatility bounces. This is sick, especially with Raging Inferno. It just means you won't have to actually cast that. But the thing is like a base firestorm is basically used as an enabler for that spell and doesn't actually do a ton of damage. And 12 pyres is a lot of pyres, so I don't know if that'll actually be used, but I like the idea. I'm not a Devastation Evoker expert. I played it a ton in beta. I understand the playstyle. I've been able to extend my Dragon Rage to a minute on PTR. Like, I get it with like a bunch of external buffs and shit. But I haven't actually played it as on live in a long time, so I'm not super knowledgeable on it. Imminent Destruction has been redesigned. Deep Breath reduces the essence cost of Disintegrate and Pyre by 1 for 10 seconds after you land. And they put it near the bottom here. Where did it used to be? So Imminent Destruction used to be on the road to Hoarded Power, and now it's after Burnout and before Feed the Flames, but like kind of, okay, so it's like a choice after a Burnout, basically. Let's see. Imminent Destruction, it used to be Deep Breath reduces the essence cost of Disintegrate by Pyre and Pyre by 1 for 10 seconds after you land. So encouraging more Deep Breath in combat, where right now it's kind of like a filler. So now it reduces the essence cost by 1 for 10 seconds after you land. Oh, that's actually the current thing. What was the old thing? Now it's Empower spells reach maximum level in 10%. Wow, okay. So Imminent Destruction, and as a 2-point talent, just got straight up fucking baked into Font of Magic. So Font of Magic as a 1-pointer now is as good as 3 points would have been in the last tree. That's high value. Are Evokers going to be good again? I can't tell you that for sure. They definitely are turbo ass, at least in pure single target, like right now, in my opinion. Like, they were massively nerfed from where they were before. They weren't turbo ass. They weren't as bad as people think, but like they were definitely not excellent. Before they were very, very excellent. Let's see, where were we? Okay, Lay Waste is now a 1-rank talent, and damage bonus was increased by that much percent. Where's Lay Waste? Oh, up here. Deep Breath damage. Oh, so now when you look at when you're trying to get the Disintegrate thing, it used to be like you had to pick one or the other, but you would just always take Arcane Intensity. So basically they were just like, okay, Lay Waste point benefit doesn't really matter. Okay, so this is way more attractive now. Lay Waste is a 1-rank talent, and the damage bonus was increased, which is good. Burnout is not a 1-rank talent, and its chance to trigger is now 16%, the former 2-rank value. Okay, so Burnout now a 1-point. Holy, they're going to have so many more options. Scintillation was now a 1-rank talent, and it's the exact same power as it used to be. Holy shit. Power Swell is now a 1-rank talent, and it's the same as what it used to. Oh, dude, this is fucking crazy. This, like, just so far, like, I don't know, like, what this is going to mean for their overall power level, but, okay, as a Devastation Evoker, question, you guys who played this class for whatever reason, did you all feel like your talent tree was super locked in and you had, like, zero choice? And, like, there was a lot of good stuff you wanted to do? I mean, you guys, so far, if you were picking any of these talents that they are redesigning, you basically are keeping your current spec right now, but you are getting a much better causality, and you just straight up have like 4 new spec joints. You have everything you had before, but you have like, it looks like 3 to 4 new spec tree points to play around with, which is, if you were to say that about any class in the game, that is fucking wildly powerful, depending on what else you can select. New talent, Event Horizon. Wait, where is this on the tree though? So where did they put Event Horizon, the new talent? Oh, right here. It's it's where causality used to be, kinda. So Eternity Surge deals 15% increased damage to your primary target, and then also Eternity Surge cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. Okay, and Eye of Infinity was redesigned. So you just choose between... This isn't even necessarily single target and AoE. It's possible that Event Horizon is something you take even for single target Dragon Rage extensions, depending on how close that is. Arcane Vigor has been redesigned. Shattering Star grants Essence Burst. What is that? So down here, what did it used to say? Shattering Star generates 1 essence. Oh, that's dog shit. Okay, and then this grants Essence Burst, which is way... Dude, imagine the difference between a talent that says grants 1 essence versus granting Essence Burst. That is so much better. That's also going to feel way better in the opener, too. Snapfire's chance to trigger from Firestorm increased to 15%, was 12. I hate playing with Snapfire. I don't know if it's good or if you guys currently play it, but all the time I spent playing Snapfire just felt bad. So hopefully that feels better. I mean, it has a, 25% more chance to proc than before. Raging Inferno's Firestorm radius bonus reduced to 25 was 50, and Pyre damage bonus. So they just nerfed Raging Inferno. They thought it was too good. I wonder if they nerfed it because they thought Snapfire was just so bad in relation to it, so the choice node didn't make sense, or if they felt that Raging Inferno was so insane. Because obviously Raging Inferno is going to have like huge viability with Feed the Flames as well. All right, cool. So Evoker DPS have to be happy. But I think one of the biggest issues that Evokers had was that their Dragon Rage window felt like it got nerfed for Blizzard even said, like, we don't like that you guys are extending your cooldown this long, and we think we would rather be more powerful and shorter. I imagine, I'm just like doing math in my head, new causality is definitely going to give you banger Dragon Rages, right? If you select this, which, I mean, you just got a bunch more points, so why the fuck wouldn't you? Dude, I feel like not only are they going to have a super strong Dragon Rage now, but I think they're going to go back to being like very, very good PI targets too. I don't know how that will compete with a couple of the other specs this patch, but I imagine they're just going to get insane value from PI, which is good. Okay, let's go to Hunter. Revive Pet is now at 2.5 second cast time, was 3 seconds. Let's go. Let's fucking go. And Revive Pet can no longer be kicked. I guess that's a PvP thing. Who cares? Survival... Dragonflight Season 1 Survival Hunter tier set bonus is very powerful in single target, but will potentially cause issues in Season 2, where you are not encouraged to upgrade your gear to a new tier set. We're lowering the values of the Season 1, 2, and 4-piece set and increasing the damage dealt by your class to compensate for these changes. Do exactly this for Windwalker, please. I'll even write it for Windwalker. Except, you could even replace this. The last 4 tier bonuses you guys have had have made Rising Sunkick and Fist of Fury do 15 to 30% more damage because they don't do enough base damage. But we don't want you guys to we don't want to have to keep making tier bonuses that buff Rising Sunkick and Fist of Fury. So we're just going to buff them to the values they should be all the time, so our tier bonuses are not the exact same thing every time, and the class doesn't get absolutely shit on every single time a new season comes out. All right, please do that. Oh, Monk is next. Maybe they're going to do it. Fixed an issue that prevented Ferocity of Zwen from not increasing your summoned pet damage. And Brewmaster Fluidity of Motions tooltip has been updated to clarify the damage of Blackout Kick is reduced. Oh. Well, that's good. That's okay. That's they did exactly what I wanted. Very good. Anyways, what are they doing into Survival? Oh, you guys are going to get an ad soon. Get owned. Survival 2 set has been adjusted. They nerfed the 2 set, and then 4 set has been adjusted, and then they just buffed Survival by 8% with the nerf of their old tier. Cool. Monk. Nothing. And then notice that they go Monk straight to Paladin, which means they completely skip Mage. Mage, 0 changes, even though Mage players are very down bad and unhappy, rightfully so. Their tier fucking sucks wiener. And their whole class is just super not powerful. So hopefully hopefully they've... Oh, mage would be before monk. Never mind. And I'm turbo stupid. But yeah, the point is it isn't here. All right, on to paladin. Looks like none of this matters. Yep. Okay, moving on. Disc. So the 2-piece and 4-piece for disc has been redesigned. Let's pull up what their old one was. So their current 2-set Bonsu is Shadow Word Pain and Purge the Wicked is increased by 25%. Power Word Shield absorbs 20% additional damage. All right. Disc's new 2-piece is Shadow Word Pain and Purge the Wicked increased by 25%, and Power Word Radiance Healing is increased by 15% instead of Power Word Shield. I don't know how Disc Priest heal, though. Isn't Power Word Radiance, like, only good for spreading atonements? Or does it also just do fucking fat-ass healing? I know it puts out, it like puts out a bunch of random atonements on your raid. It does a ton of healing. It does fat healing, and oh, it's 5-man content. Okay. Like, I think it obviously will do good healing in raid, but as far as I'm aware in raid, it's more valuable for its ability to, like, consistently put out a lot of atonements for ramp windows. But yeah, let's fucking go. You guys seem to be pogging. 4-piece. Atonements applied by Power Word Radiance last 3 seconds longer. Oh, wait. So let's look at the old one. Every 3 casts of Power Word Shield cause your next atonement to last an additional 15 seconds and heal 10% more. Very bad. New one. Atonements applied by Power Word Radiance last 3 seconds longer, and your spells have a chance to cause your next Power Word Radiance to be instant and cost 100% less mana, can accumulate up to 2 charges. So that seems fucking crazy good, right? Is that the first good disc piece of tier in, like, actually years, right? Like years and years and years and years. Like disc has historically had really, really bad tier bonuses. That seems really good. That seems like probably as good as most healer 4 pieces are right now, like the really powerful ones. They're gonna be fucking... I guess it depends on how often this procs, right? Like, are you expecting every time with this tier bonus that every time you press Powered Radiance, it's instant and it doesn't cost mana? And if that's the case, they're gonna be much more mana efficient and also can just have more on-demand ramp windows too. Like, you know, like the feeling of disc when you're in... One of the hardest things in disc and progression in general is getting to the point where you know when damage is happening and you're like pre-setting up. Having a casted Powered Radiance or 2 of them is like, it delays the ability for you to react to something. So like, in a way, not only at high levels, I think this matters less because you just have more, you're more prepared for things to happen in general. But I also think that in a world where this procs enough to where when you're pressing this button, it's instant alone, just that part alone, I feel like will make it easier for a Disc Priest in general to react to damage that's happening when things go wrong more than it does currently, which in my opinion is actually the biggest reason why Disc Priests are usually bad in most content if it's not a really, really good player, because you're just always behind. But I mean, this just straight up makes it... The design of this is good for so many reasons, but one of them is just... You'll be less behind. So all good. And the mana is probably insane. As far as I'm aware, this is like a super, super mana heavy ability. And then in Mythic Plus, the healing of Powered Radiance matters a lot as well. All right. Holy Priest. Here we go. This was their most recent one. So when you cast Prayer of Mending, there is a 35% chance its effect is duplicated to another ally. Which, by the way, people have been... Holy tier bonuses have been fucking broken on raid testing recently. But that's just because, like, this tuning update wasn't even applied to the last raid test. So we basically had, like, 2 raid test weeks in a row where Holy Priest had the same thing. Wait, it's the same thing. Okay. So they haven't changed anything. It's just, this is the same thing as the last update they did. They're just actually pushing it live this week, where last week it wasn't. Okay, so we still just haven't really played with this tier yet. Okay. Shadow Priest buffs. Woohoo! They have not changed any of their tier. Their tier is still the Shadowy Insight triggering with Mind Blast 30% damage and Insanity, and then DP by 15% and every 4 cast increases. This is... I believe Shadow Priests were really happy with this upon the last redesign as far as tier is concerned. But they did Shadow Word Death damage increased in general by 10% for Shadow. Mind Flay and Mind Sear damage from Idol of Cthulhu nerfed by 30%. Distorted Reality increases the damage of DP by 20% and increases its insanity cost by 5, was 10. Okay, so some talent they have, much more valuable for DP. I'm assuming this was like super dog shit or something. And Auspicious Spirits causes shadowy apparitions to have a chance to generate 1 insanity, was 2. Okay, so just nerfing Auspicious Spirits. It's a choice node. It was never taken. Still not great. Distorted Reality was a net DPS loss to take it before. Oh, really? So like, oh yeah, you're right. It was a net DPS loss. It increased the insanity cost by 10 and only gave it an 8% increase. That's so bad. Why is that even a thing? Why would, like, was that way this whole expansion so far? That's so bad. Okay, all right, Shaman. So deeply rooted elements should now activate more consistently for all specs. They noted this last week, so did they change it again? Like, this was in last week's notes. I don't think, I'm just going to assume, just like the Holy Priest one, this was posted last week, but it wasn't actually changed. So this is in general good. If you guys have played deeply rooted elements, you could actually go forever without getting procs. But at the same time, you would also have times where you just got insane procs. So you could chain this shit for like 40 seconds, and it felt fucking unbelievable. So kind of that won't happen much as often either. So this is like a nerf and a buff. It's a buff to overall gameplay and playstyle. It's a buff to your shitty situations where you get fucked on RNG for long, but it's also going to not have the like huge dopamine hit high roll. Like the chance of it chain procking is also nerfed. So it's roughly going to be the same, but it's like potential. Like if you guys remember how like Shaman would play DRE on like single target Taros just to like get a high roll, those high rolls are going to be less likely now, but I think it'll be more like healthy for playing the spec normally. So, and in general, I would just say the variance was too high. I'm assuming as well, we guessed this last week, we are going to assume that they're doing deck of card RNG for deeply rooted elements. Someone can test it. I'm not going to explain what deck of card RNG is like again, but it wasn't like this before, and whatever percentage it was to proc, it was just that percentage and it had no bad luck protection basically, so it could just never proc basically. Dude, someone in chat fucking hates deeply rooted elements, dude. I'm gonna read you a bunch of his chat messages in a row. No, deeply rooted element sucks. It's the worst talent to exist. Deeply rooted elements doesn't feel good. Please don't make it that way. Deeply rooted elements RNG breaks the class. Please stop. Just say it sucks. It's RNG. Please stop. Deeply rooted elements sucks and no shaman wants it. This guy, those are all separate messages. This guy's fucking just popping off. He's farming trues though. He's kind of farming trues. Okay, destruction. Redesign the 4-piece. So last week they made the new 4-piece. Increases your fire damage by demon fire bolts. Increase your fire damage by 1% for 13 seconds. Stack it 8 times. Giving a stack does not refresh the duration. Casting channel demon fire resets the effect. People are not a fan of Destro Warlock tier in general. Just because channel demon fire, like when Blizzard is making tier bonuses for buttons, like sometimes, and I don't think this is necessarily bad, they will like pick a talent maybe you don't normally play on your talent tree, or they'll pick like a certain kind of build or playstyle, and like they're like, this patch we're gonna make that playstyle like super OP. Like maybe for Frost it's like a Blit build, or maybe for monks they've done this in the past. They'll make it to where monks like are super incentivized to play, you know, like the Last Emperor's Capacitor or whatever, right? So like they'll pick buttons. They have mixed results, but generally speaking, it comes down to this. If you are buffing a playstyle that feels good, that people like playing as a feel thing, people are going to enjoy that tier set. If you are buffing buttons that people would rather not select purely based on fun, then people aren't going to do that. I'll give an example. If monks were to have a tier bonus that buffed Serenity and not Storm, Earth, and Fire and made you play Serenity for the whole patch, I would not play monk. Straight up, I would just not play the class that patch. But if they made some really cool interaction between like Whirling Dragon Punch and Zwen's Battle Gear, I would literally play monk just because of that. If they made a tier bonus based on Phaline Stomp, I would not play Windwalker or Rushing Jade Wind. I would literally not log in and play it. It's total ass. But if they made one that by selecting Spiritual Focus and the new tier set like doubled down on Spiritual Focus and you had like crazy high uptime on clones, then like that would be super fucking different and fun and cool. It just totally depends on the actual abilities that they're choosing. I think the biggest issue with Destro locks is they're choosing channel demon fire to rotate their shit around, and I think Destro locks in general just feel like channel demon fire is super ass and not fun to play, and making it really good isn't going to make the class any more fun to play because you're just forcing them to press a button that sucks. It would be like an affliction tier bonus that focused on Siphon Life, right? Even if the set was really strong, Affliction locks would be like, this fucking blows. Like, why are we doing this? And I think Warlocks have kind of been screaming for Channel Demon Fire if they're going to force you to play it to make it also cast while moving, because Destro Warlock could use a little bit of movement help as well. This is the exact same thing. They didn't change it at all. They must have just not implemented it last week. Okay, but everything I just said before this still applies. But all right, moving on. So here we go. Fatal Mark now lasts 3 minutes, was 2 minutes. What the fuck is that? Is that their tier? What is Fatal Mark? Oh, it's their Ink Pod talent. That's so good because there's certain fights where it can actually fall off based on like downtime or whatever. It's the thing. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it and actually read it. Here it is. Your mortal strikes and cleaves against enemy above 30% health have a high percent chance to apply Fatal Mark. When an enemy falls below 30% health, your next execute inflicts additional damage. Okay, so it's Ink Pod, right? All applied to the execute you do under 30%. So you should make this like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably fine at 3, but the reason this exists is, let's say you're stacking up in Razageth on P1 or something, and then the first intermission happens, and this falls off. Same thing actually happened with Ink Pod until they changed it. You would do Razageth P2, stacking up a bunch of stacks, and then Razageth flies away for you to do the intermission. And then if it takes long enough, it like falls off or something, right? So in general, this should just always be this way. So that's definitely a good change. In addition to its current effect, Bloodletting now causes Mortal Strike to inflict rend on targets below 35% health if you have rend talented. Oh, okay. Where's that? Oh, right here. Deep Wounds, Rend and Thunder, blah, blah, blah. If you have Rend, Mortal Strikes... Oh, this is the new change. Okay, so just in addition, it just now also makes it so you don't have to actually apply Rend anymore. You just press Mortal Strike. Just quality of life shit, right? Sounds good. And then Arm's 4-piece has been redesigned. So Arm's old 4-piece, they're 4 pieces. Deep Wound critical strikes have a chance to increase the damage of your next slam by 25%, stacking 10 times, causing it to strike up to 4 additional targets, 50% damage. So we've actually talked about this multiple times. I think the idea in some specs for something like this is actually a fucking sick idea, especially if your spec does not cast a certain amount of spells. I kept relating it to Cold Heart for Frost Decay, where if you select Cold Heart, you press Change of Ice once every 30 seconds, and it does a ton of fucking damage. And otherwise, you would never press it in your single target rotation. There have been certain builds of Frost Decay where Frost Decay was made a better class by lining up a sick Cold Heart in your Pillar of Frost, and it hit really hard at the end of your Pillar of Frost, and it made the class more fun. I think the idea for this was they wanted to have Slam, a button that normally sucks, be a button that you press, and when you hit it, it fucking owns. And it like does a ton of damage. But I think they just never hit that point because Slam by default is just so insanely dog shit that you just don't want... Basically, the idea is good, but Arms Warriors were basically like, yo, just like make a 4-piece for us and definitely don't put Slam in there because that ain't it. That's I think that's generally the thing that Warriors have been saying from that. So their redesign is this. Deep Wound critical strikes have a chance to increase the damage of your next Mortal Strike by 10% and cause it to deal extra physical... Ooh, the increases... Ooh, okay. Deep Wounds have a chance to increase the damage of your next Mortal Strike by 10% instead of Slam. It only stacks 3 times, but it also will do AoE damage in front of you. And the damage is reduced beyond 5 targets, probably square root scaling, I assume. Fuck yeah. 4 pieces on PTR right now are critting for 20k in current gear to every target in front of you. That's definitely good. It kind of, in a way, it kind of feels like the Windwalker 2-piece for like when you press Mortal Strike on AoE, it's like pressing Rising Sun Kick on AoE right now, where you're pressing an ability all the time in single target or in AoE that you would basically be a single target ability, but it just also gives you some AoE value. Fuck yeah. That's gonna stack really often too. Fuck yeah. Fury 4-piece has also been readjusted. Old Fury 4-piece. I'm going to go down and make sure it's not the natty one. Seems like they haven't touched it. Okay. Oh, there was an Arms Warrior one down there. Either way. Old one. Rampage crits cause against your primary target cause the next Bloodthirst to deal 50% increased damage and generate 2 additional rage, stack him to 4 times. It has also a 100% chance to critical strike. I thought this one was generally liked. Wasn't this like really fucking good actually? It was way too strong. Okay, so it looks like they're going to tune it down a little bit. Okay, it's been redesigned. Rampage, no longer critical strikes, but just Rampage in general, causes your next Bloodthirst to have a 10% increased crit chance, dealing 25% increased damage, and generate 2 additional rage, stacking up to 10 times. Wow, they made this unbelievably broken and now it's unbelievably dog shit. I think they're on the right track though. Like as far as the design of it, I just think the numbers need to be higher.